Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's lesson is about reference gathering, doing thumbnails from the reference, and then doing a refined sketch from the thumbnails. So it's like a three-part process. Now, this is a not watered down process of what I usually do because I'm showing you firsthand how I gather reference images in raw form straight from the internet, just Google search, Microsoft Bing, whatever. And then what I do is I collect the reference that I feel can best serve me based on the client brief. Okay, and the client brief was displayed, and I also have it in the description too, so make sure you read that. This is all real-world examples. It's not word for word of anything that I have gotten from a recent client, but you never know what you're going to get as far as what studios need, because sometimes they want something totally out of the ordinary. They're starting a new IP. It's blue sky phase, so anything goes, and the first concept artist they hire, they're pretty much relying on the concept artist. So you can see the images that I'm collecting here. I have iguanas, and then I have some weapons, both real-world examples and also concept art that I feel is pretty cool that I could help, or that could help me serve my purpose. I'm just using pure ref too. Back in the day, I would just paste everything in Photoshop. But ever since I started using pure ref, and they're not sponsoring today, by the way. I just love the program. But ever since I started using it, my organization has shot up. So you'll see here, I'm just collecting images based on that brief. And then what we do is we switch into thumbnail sketching from the reference. So I'm focusing on the iguana and also the basilisk up there. I believe I have some bearded dragon in there. I'm looking at the face. To me, as a creature designer and as a character designer, but mainly creatures, the face is key, especially the eyes. I like to focus on the eyes first, or get that facial expression in there. And you'll see that the sketching that I'm doing is very gestural, trying to get a neat pose in there. I'm not going into too much detail, but I'm giving enough detail in these initial thumbnail sketches to where the design is seen. There's intent there. One of my flaws for years was that I would do a thumbnail that was supposed to be readable. Not my fast scribbles, but it was supposed to be readable. And 60% of the edges weren't even defined yet, so the client could never tell what a fingernail was, what the edge of a head was, what the hair was, how how sharp is the weapon. So like the silhouette is crucial. Now you'll see here that the first warrior that I'm drawing, it's a lizard. It's a lizard warrior that could run on all fours but also stand up. So what I was trying to do here was look at the way the iguana and its limbs are built. Very stubby, very short, but also kind of fat, kind of compact. And I realized that in this thumbnail, I had to go back to the ankles and I had to shorten them up again, or shorten them up more. And I had to make it look like, hey, if the iguana or some kind of lizard just stood up, that the legs wouldn't be able to bend all the way. And I don't know, I think I achieved it. Comment below if you think I achieved it. I don't know. It's a thumbnail. One of the things that I always tell people is there is no failure in thumbnailing, ever. Because nothing is supposed to be precise within the thumbnail process. You get to the precise design from the thumbnails. And you can't get to the precise one unless all those markings you put down guided you to that spot. Okay, so if you're thumbnailing and you think that you suck at it, take a deep breath. Okay, stand up, walk around, do jumping jacks or something, I don't know. But you have to tell yourself that this is all a journey. Okay, when I'm doing these thumbnails, so you see here, this creature pretty much can walk on all fours too. It's quadruped, but also could stand up. Kind of like a gorilla. I didn't really know what was happening with this sketch because I was going to put big weapons on the back and maybe, I don't know, a mounted shield, some knives, daggers. Wasn't really sure, but I just liked the stance, so I went with it. And here, I'm focusing on the lizard head again. It's funny, and this is going to happen to you guys if you're doing thumbnailing. There's going to be a point when you're going to do a couple thumbnail sketches and you're going to go, wow, these are all bad. I don't really like where these are going. I don't think I'm hitting the brief at all. And then all of a sudden, you get a new idea based on the thumbnails that you were doing. And this new idea is not based on reference. That's the craziest thing. So, for example, the creature's head that I'm drawing right now, I was actually thinking of the Carnotaurus. Okay, the dinosaur. I don't know why that popped in my head. I have no idea. Maybe I was talking to my two sons about Jurassic Park. I have no idea. I knew that I wanted to compact the face. I didn't want to make the snout come out because I'm thinking that if I make this human-like, or humanoid, that I might need to flatten that muzzle just a little bit. And I think it worked for the best because later on you'll see, and hopefully you guys are sticking around for this. Later on you'll see why I believe it was a good idea to keep it. I didn't want to make it look like just any other dinosaur or any other lizard warrior. So a lot of the character is going to happen in the face anyway. And here I'm just working out the stance. So I'm thinking about what weapons the creature can hold. Try not to deviate from the brief too much. This thing is rather human. Having images of a knight in shining armor, just a really awesome lizard warrior that could guard a temple and still be light on his feet and not carry too much weaponry. I just plopped a huge, crazy machete in there. I guess you call it a machete, I don't know. It's like a fantasy machete. And then a mace. I just put a mace up there. I didn't even put a lot of detail in that mace because there was no point. You guys can see this right now. I'm concentrating on this particular sketch a lot because I feel good about it. It's my gut telling me, Bobby, you should go with this one. So those of you out there wondering which sketch that you should go with, do that. Trust your gut. Thumbnail refinement. So all I did here was I took the original sketch, duplicated it, moved it over. I turned the opacity down. You can turn it down to 15%, 20%. You're going to do a slightly more refined version, better line work, cleaner lines, better line weight on top of that. You don't have to, but I like doing it just because I'm carrying over probably 70 or 80% of the design because I liked some of the elements in that original sketch, but I'm also adding new stuff. So this way I can see like, okay, what's working? What isn't working? Am I following the original silhouette? Because if the original silhouette is good, you don't want to compromise that. You know in your gut when you nailed that silhouette. You just do. It feels right. And yes, it's going to change within the design process, but for the most part, you keep it. So here I'm just working on smaller details, trying to flesh out some ambiguous areas. Whenever you get to the refinement stage, you want to make sure that each piece of armor, each body part is readable. So in a rough sketch, maybe you don't finish the edge of an elbow. Maybe you don't finish the edge of a spike or, piece of clothing or whatever. But when you refine these sketches and before you send them to a client, you don't want to have to keep redoing everything or adding or subtracting or whatever. You want to make sure that the design is readable from head to toe. And you're going to see in a little bit that I go back over, the sketch that you see on the left. I just reverse the canvas here. I make sure that the edges are defining the shape that I want. So, for example, look at the elbow and just look at the pauldron. Look at the bicep cover, the tricep, the forearm. It's more fleshed out. Okay, you can see how rough it is on the sketch on the left. But on our right, we can clearly see, there actually are some blades and spikes going through that forearm, or off of that forearm. And here I'm just kind of working out little bits and pieces of the hand, the clothing, just trying to get the arm placement right about how I want the warrior to grab the staff. This is the part where I think a lot of character designs and portfolios fail, and that is they're not holding any props. Your characters don't have to hold any prop, but it's always a good idea to at least make things or make it relatable to what we see every day in games. You know, I want to know what this warrior is going to look like holding a weapon as much as the client does. You should be excited about that. And the other thing that's fun about this is when you're sketching these thumbnails and you're refining them and it's getting fleshed out, you're getting all these ideas. You want to do a whole lineup of weapons. And that in itself is a lot of fun too, because you can customize these weapons to make it specific for the creature or character, instead of just a generic sword or a generic, staff or whatever. I tried not to be generic for this one, but that's why I keep looking at that reference in there. I also loved looking at that red iguana when I was drawing this. Trying to get that gullet in there too, if you want to call it a gullet. But you can see the head is clearly more defined than any other place, and that was purposeful. But I also make sure that from head to toe, the client's going to see where the toes end, what type of armor is on the shin and, the knee and places like that. So I'm working out the staff right now. It's always good to add a prop in with your creatures and characters. Another reason why, besides it just looks awesome, when you put these types of things in your portfolio, a character with a weapon and good armor and stuff, you're telling the studios and the clients, hey, hard surface, industrial design, organics, and proportions, all of it is being taken care of. You're proving that you can do this. Just on a little side note here, when I did this weapon, I made sure that the weapon itself had character to it. The butt of the weapon that's touching the ground is thicker. It thins out into the middle of the staff. The middle of the staff has like a kind of a wrapping for the hand, so you know where the hand is supposed to go. And then, of course, the blade is a pretty crazy blade. I don't even know if it's practical. You want your designs to be model ready, too. Now, this isn't an entire character sheet. A character sheet that would go to production would be prop callouts, front view, back view of the character, side view without the arms, so you know what's happening in the oblique section and in the armpits. So you want to give as much information as possible through to the 3D department. All right. Love drawing these things. So much fun, so much fun. Armor is so much fun too. I said so much fun 4 times. Sorry about that. All right. Still having fun with the outfit. And then I do switch it back to the other view too. And then I also believe that I outline the work so you can see in a more close-up scenario in a little bit. Some facial details coming in there. Just a lot of fun. There we go. Now I'm really paying attention to that outline. And also it helps me not be confused about what I want. I don't want to leave areas ambiguous for me either. Because if I have to go back and model it myself, because sometimes I do have to do that, I'll know what I originally intended. And your original idea when it comes to this stuff tends to be the best one before you overthink it and screw everything up. You don't want to do that. Okay, just putting the darker lines in to help define as much as possible. These are the types of things you need to think about when you send it off to a client. You want to make sure that you're making the other team members' lives as easy as possible. You want to erase any kind of friction in the design process. especially if you're the only concept artist for the team. Or if you're a freelancer and a client hired you specifically for the jobs. You want to make sure you deliver on that. You want to make sure all design intent is there. I want to thank everybody for watching today. Comment below if you enjoyed today's lesson, and I will see you all next time.